Hello fellow gardeners, this is Amy from Gardening Know-How, and today we are going to unveil some of the top reasons why your hydrangea just refuses to bloom. Hydrangeas are a favorite plant for many gardeners, but when they fail to bloom, you may begin to wonder what went wrong. Environmental factors, as well as pruning practices, and even winter damage can all factor into this mystery that is all too common. First, we need to consider the type of hydrangea you have. Different hydrangea species bloom at different times of the year and produce flower buds on different parts of the plant. Some bloom on old wood, meaning they produce the flower buds that will bloom next summer on the prior season's growth. Two examples of old wood bloomers are mophead hydrangeas and oakleaf hydrangeas. Other types bloom on new wood and are more reliable bloomers. These varieties form their flower buds in the spring or summer of the current season, even if you prune the plant back hard. These would include panicle types, and you may be familiar with a variety called limelight, or smooth hydrangeas such as Annabelle. Even some newer varieties of mophead hydrangeas can bloom on both old wood and new wood. There is also another type of hydrangea to look out for. This one shows up at big box stores, garden centers, and grocery stores in the spring, usually around the Easter holiday or Mother's Day. These are florist hydrangeas, and even though they are beautiful, they come with a warning. In most cases, they are not hardy and not meant to be planted outdoors. These types have been forced to bloom outside of their usual growth cycle. It is best to just enjoy this type indoors for the season. Now, they can grow into a large shrub given the right circumstances, but they usually just muster disappointment. Also remember that patience is key. Some hydrangeas, especially if purchased young, can take several years to establish themselves and set buds. If you are like me and a bit impatient, it may be best to purchase your hydrangeas while in bloom. You may also want to start with a larger plant with an already established root system. This way you know your hydrangea is mature and will bloom for you. Next would be timing. Different varieties bloom at different times of the year. If it is July and you see no buds and no blooms, it just may be too early. Usually, depending on the region, the oakleaf types bloom first, then the smooth hydrangeas, then the mopheads, and finally the panicle types begin to develop buds and bloom a bit later in the season. Now it is time to talk about proper pruning. This is by far the #1 reason why a hydrangea may not bloom. If you have an old wood bloomer like a mophead, oakleaf, or mountain hydrangea, it's best to prune right as they finish blooming. Old wood hydrangeas actually start producing their buds at the end of the summer into early fall, and those buds will then become the blooms for the next season. So if you prune after mid-August or so, depending on your region, you will be cutting off the buds. This is why the correct identification of your plant is so crucial. Luckily, some newer varieties will bloom on both old wood and new wood. So whether the buds are damaged over the winter or inadvertently pruned, the new growth will more than likely form buds, although it may bloom a bit later in the season. Be sure to check the plant tag for any indication that it may be a rebloomer. Hydrangeas that bloom on new wood only, such as the panicle and smooth species, are very resilient and perform well no matter when they're pruned. Even if you make a few mistake cuts, these plants reliably bloom year after year. In truth, hydrangeas do not need to be pruned at all. They can actually be a very low maintenance plant. Pruning has its advantages, but it is never necessary. If you don't know what type of hydrangea you have, just don't prune it. Another way to prevent any unnecessary pruning is to pick out the best variety for your garden when shopping at the garden center. Choose a hydrangea that fits the size requirements of your space so that pruning is not necessary to keep the plant in check. 3 other main factors in the health of any plant are water, sunlight, and soil. With hydra in their name, hydrangeas are, you guessed it, water lovers. They prefer consistent moisture, but not over waterlogged conditions. A good, well-drained, moist soil will provide the best growth for these shrubs. When planting, consider amending the surrounding soil with organic matter, like compost, to improve soil structure and provide essential nutrients to the plants. If your hydrangea is still not blooming after following all of the advice in this video, you may want to consider a soil test. Too much nitrogen in the soil will produce lots of healthy green leafy growth, but with a lack of nutrients, including phosphorus, limited bloom production may occur. Adding a dose or two of fertilizer during the growing season will significantly boost your bloom production. Look for a general all-purpose fertilizer or a product specific to acid-loving plants or blooming plants. Sunlight is another factor. Many hydrangeas are shade lovers, but this does not mean full shade. Some types, especially mopheads and varieties like Annabelle, do however prefer part shade. Morning sun with afternoon shade is usually ideal. Other types such as panicle and oakleaf can take a bit more sun, even hot afternoon sun, as long as enough water is provided. All hydrangeas do need a bare minimum of 4 hours of sun per day to perform their best. With the right combination of soil, water, and sunlight, you will be well on your way to a healthy hydrangea. Damage to your plant, whether that be from the cold of winter or even local wildlife, is beyond your control and can also affect your plant's bloom production. Deer especially love hydrangeas and may browse on your plants. They may take just a nibble or eat the entire plant from the top down. Another type of damage that may occur is winter damage. Hydrangeas that bloom on old wood are especially susceptible to bud kill from winter all the way up until spring. Since the flower buds were set the prior year, they need to survive the entire winter and through late spring frosts and freezes. For this reason, you may want to consider protecting your plants. This is especially true for those growing mophead hydrangeas in colder zones. In late fall, after the ground freezes, construct a frame around the plant with chicken wire, twine, or burlap. Then apply a mound of shredded leaves or bark mulch to help insulate the stems. I have one more final bit of advice. This advice doesn't come with a scientific explanation or backed by experiments, but from personal experience. Sometimes a hydrangea just doesn't like where it is planted. On countless occasions, I have heard of gardeners simply transplanting their shrub to a new location for a new lease on life. This simple location change may be the answer to a more vigorous and healthy plant that actually blooms. And finally, no matter what you do, if your hydrangea still doesn't bloom, it may be time to replace them with a variety that is more dependable. Whether that be a new wood bloomer or a rebloomer, sometimes it is just a simple case of out with the old and in with the new. We hope the information in this video helped to unravel the mystery of non-blooming hydrangeas. Just remember, hydrangeas are beautiful and rewarding plants, but they can be a bit finicky when it comes to blooming. By addressing the issues such as improper pruning, inadequate sunlight, and harsh winter conditions, and the species, you can significantly increase your chances of seeing those gorgeous blooms. If you would like more information on growing hydrangeas, be sure to click on the link in the description below for our new hydrangea care guide with information on choosing, planting, and caring for your hydrangeas. And to keep your plants extra healthy throughout the season, watch our 5 tips for happy hydrangeas video, also linked in the description below. Well, thanks for watching and happy gardening!